Hi, everybody. Welcome to day two of empathy. I don't know if there's any way that I can have everybody come in without letting the AI note takers to join. That has to be more tricky to not to let the note takers join. So do a little logistic stuff. Um, Yesterday we talked about soul's journey, and I think there are a lot of information in I think a lot of people are little by little absorbing and processing and integrating, which is what we want to do. We want to, I would highly suggest to watch a couple of times because, to be honest with you, when I do this event, I actually go back to my own recording to watch it and listen to it. And it helps me understand at the deeper level what we are talking about. And speaking is one way to absorb the information, but then the goal is, and where we're going, is to begin absorbing and accepting that in your subconscious, and that's what we call realization. So then self-realization, that is a main theme of this group. Now, Soul Purpose Group is a title of the group, right? And it is a group for all of us to tap into the calling, the purpose of the soul. And you are able to access that calling and begin living on purpose and with purpose as we integrate the self and the soul, as we integrate the essence and personality, as we integrate the mind and the spirit. And it's very interesting because last month, right, I did an event on wholeness, and the main message there was that sharing that I have witnessed different stages of awakening, and people feel, first of all, when we come to this world, we have a deeper knowing, but all of us get influenced, by the surrounding, and we have this programming. We do things in a way that our parents told us to do. We do things in a way that our surroundings are acting, and begin being absorbed by that energy, thinking that that's how we are supposed to be living, right? Thinking that that's how we're supposed to be living. And then what happens there is that we start forming a construct of the mind and the limitation of the mind, and begin creating the life based on that mind. And we go through the process of life to do the things that we think that we're supposed to be doing, which includes going to school, which includes um, getting the job, which includes being forming different relationship, which includes retiring, which includes all of those, yeah. And there are a lot of encounters and things that we can experience through those, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? It doesn't have to be that way. Means that we can live the life however we want to be living based on what allows us to express fully. So the awakened self and the path to awakening is really about how can we begin creating a life that allows us to express ourselves fully, to live and have an experience that we are here to do without any limitation, because the only limitation is in the mind, and each one of us can form a different kind of mind based on what we choose. And I think if you're hearing this group on this call, it's very obvious that for all of us, which doesn't mean that we're constantly living from that perspective, but it's obvious that the world that we're experiencing is being dictated by the mind that we construct. So Marianne Williamson is somebody who I enjoy. Um, engaging in her material. And one of the things that she often says is that in order to change the world, we need to change the mind of the world. Yeah. Because the world that we see in the physical eyes is a reflection of the mind that creates that manifestation. And manifestation, if we really think of what it is, it comes down to what Neville Goddard, who is if you don't know who that is, he was a, uh mentor of Wayne Dyer. He talks about the law of assumption, right? That assumption that we hold in our subconscious mind is the cause and the seed of energetic that molds the circumstance. And we really want to not understand that, but to begin living that is what's happening. So the self-definition that we have is what we want to notice that we're constantly demonstrating to be able to step into that light. So it's interesting, right? Then the life goes on and people have different like interests and um, way of living based on how life guides them. And because of the field that I'm in, which is an online space, um, I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship. Means that entrepreneurship, when we think of, I don't know what your impression of entrepreneurship, you might think of entrepreneurship as, growing a business massively. For me, I don't have these sort of, I don't know about you, but the general term people look at job or work or business in a certain way, right? But for me, we're here to express our gift and to begin touching others and begin circulating that energy. That is business. You know what I mean? That is business. So you have your arts and you are sharing that with others, right? And I actually don't I believe in the infinite supply. So I believe in the abundant universe. And knowing that the life that we experience is an extension of the consciousness, the abundance of health and the lack of health, abundance of money and lack of money is what follows consciousness. So let me share a little bit of background. I Many people have some sort of challenge. It is something that I was talking with Jan on Tuesday because we do this conversational interview style talk on Tuesdays on YouTube, if you're wondering. It's called Soul Purpose Conversation. And I think we're talking about there are many people who are succeeding in a certain areas of our life, but there's something that's lacking. So let's say, for instance, if you're somebody who, have a great health, but relationship might be sort of miserable, right? Or you might have a great relationship in health, but you might be having a money issue all the time. You might be so successful in business and relationship, but you might not be feeling good with the energy and the health all the time, right? So there's one area in our life that seems to um, fall short. And Jan was asking why because he likes asking why. I don't know why. It's just how that's how it manifests. But I guess the point is that for me, when we look at all areas in our life, it doesn't really matter what departments of our life is. It's just a matter of whether we are vibrating in an abundant state to invite that flow, or somehow in our programming, we created some stories in our energetics that preventing the flow to happen. Yeah. So I believe in, I mean, whenever I say this, maybe I need to kind of do a disclaimer or anything, but I follow a lot of the work of Bruce Lipton, who is a cell biologist, who says that, less than 5% of the cancer is genetics. 95% of the cancer is environmental programming, including your own thinking. So he talks about how people who experience and go through cancer, and then they think that, their parents or the family has it, they experience not because of the generic, but they think that they are running in their family. That's the thought, that's the assumption, right? So it's very interesting though. I wasn't planning to go to this route, but there's a room for everything, right? There's room for allopathic medicine and Western medicine. But the danger that I see in allopathic medicine is that because allopathic medicine is not a healthcare industry, but it's an illness care industry, which means that they focus on the symptom, right? And if they focus on the symptom has a name and a title and the label. Then, because the mind wants to know what it is in nature, right? And then the mind wants to focus on the fear, so you can focus on the fear to stay safe. That's what the biological self does, right? Then a lot of people in the world in general loves talking about the problem, loves negative news, complaining about things, loves venting, gossiping, right? We're not in those space, but we can see how the world has a tendency to do that. That's because the biology and the fear-based ego inside of us is fulfilling by acting on it. So that pattern is congruent in how people tends to focus on the illness, not the well-being, right? Then the whole model has been created, right? That the healthcare system, which is the illness care system, um, and I tend to be passionate about this topic because I'm measuring holistic health education. So the idea of holistic health and what well-being is, and what education school system is the path that I have taken, which ultimately I ended up creating actually the school and an awareness education system that we're in right now. But the problem is that we tend to label somebody with that symptom. Yeah. And then we want to notice that what that does for the placebo effect, what that does for the assumption, what that does for the energetic flow, because now you are having something outside the evidence of sight to influence our consciousness. And then we get trapped into trying to get out of there, even though the symptom has been molded through that consciousness and energetic dynamic. And the only way that we can let that go is to focus on the well-being and begin engaging in it when we speak and understand from a vibrational standpoint. Yeah. So there are that dynamic that we really want to pay attention to. And also, speaking of the abundant universe and what we want to focus on the essence, right? Not the wound, but the essence, not the trauma, but the well-being, not the illness symptom, but what allows us to feel expansive, because only when we do that, we are aligning the mind, the self in the mind, with who we truly are. The realm of the absolute, which is the awareness and the soul, is untouchable by the contrast, because that's why it's the realm of the absolute. There's no opposite to it. There's no fear. Fear is a man-made human conditioning, right? Because everything just is. So that perspective was created through human. This is another thing that Marianne Williamson says, that God didn't create fear, humans did. Yeah. So then, speaking of this online space and how people today, especially those who are not programmed, are expanding to express their gift. And then, I don't know if you saw this, Jan, but I sent you an Instagram DM. I don't know. I don't think you're on Instagram too much, but there was somebody who I connected 4 years ago who actually sort of collaborated with Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson is one of the probably strongest online marketers exists today, and he was back then maybe like a 23, and he was basically a millionaire at that age. And right now he's 27, and I just kind of run into his content, and he let go of his business. He has a multiple companies with seven-figure business, but he let go of all of those because now he's having a existential crisis and a spiritual awakening. And he said that he didn't sell the company, but he gave it to somebody. Right. So there are a lot of people who are actually creating a external accomplishment that uh, arriving there and having this sort of like identity crisis because they are starting from the outside and then realizing something is missing internally and recognizing, right? It's very fun to watch. I message him saying that I actually love what you're going through. Right? And then he thanked me. But another person is, I don't know if you know him, Tom. His name is Mike Chan. He was one of the most sort of like um, well-received YouTuber probably 15 years ago. And he had this YouTube channel called sixpackshortcuts.com. Yeah, right. And he was likable and he was, succeeding. He was, earning multiple $1 million, right? And then one day he disappeared, right? And I wasn't paying attention to him at all. But then one day I ran into him being interviewed by somebody, and he said that he actually decided to let go everything because he was building his business and doing things to be happy. Yeah, to be happy. And one day, something happens in his life, and he experienced an extreme deep happiness without nothing in the outside changing. And he became more curious about what is this? What is this? I have been chasing happiness through my expansion of the business, and I continue to chase it. And then now I just experienced a complete bliss internally without changing anything. And then he felt that that was much, much more important than continue to work on the sixpackshortcuts.com because he thought that getting the six packs is the road to happiness, and having everybody else in the world getting six pack was the road to happiness. But he sold that company and then he moved to Bali to work on himself. And now he came back 7 years later. He came back as a mind, body, emotion coach. He teaches breath work. He looks like a yogi now, not like a six pack shortcuts guy anymore. Yeah. And but what's interesting, what he said was that he said that I couldn't explain what I experienced. So I decided to isolate from the world. I'm paraphrasing, of course, right? And then he said, I didn't want to begin sharing what I discovered until I knew exactly what was happening inside of me, and then to be able to come up with the process actually to effectively guide others. So it took 7 years for him. And then he came back and now he teaches people, guide people to, access. Basically, he also is another person who had a spiritual awakening. Um, I love when I see those, right? People sort of succeeding externally and realizing that that's not the completion, but needs to go inwards to return home and to express. Yeah. So the topic of today is awaken self, and it is about integrating the essence of who we are and the personality that we are here to play. Now, many people who are unaware of the essence and lost touch with the whole and the essence you, the personality start driving them, and the personality start feeling addicted to them because they feel like they're moving forward. And then the more you succeed without maintaining that access to the essence, the more internally you will feel miserable because the path that they're taking is not really taking back home. But when we understand that we are nobody in the essence, and when we are able to practice, integrate the essence view in the personality, the way that we can show up in the world and touch others becomes coming from a completely different place, not just like I said yesterday, not to feel that inside, whatever that they're feeling missing, the validation or recognition or some addictiveness to how they feel they're being seen by the world. But because they're already full and they're full with something that they want to share as a gift to touch the world, they can express themselves fully without any attachment and to be able to impact the world, expressing their light in order for others to see the light in them. Can we see the difference? I'm not saying that we shouldn't grow the business. We want to. But what is the intention and what's leading them needs to be the essence and the knowing instead of the personality taking over the essence, losing the contact with the whole. So externally, it might appear as the same thing. Internally, where we are coming from is very different. And when we begin practicing that, and it's going to be back and forth though, because the mind has a tendency to focus on the physical because what we can see is a part of the rational mind. Yeah. You can picture something, right? Then we see the evidence in the outside, but then we don't want to lose connection with the inside. And that dance, that what I call the integration, is a key to really begin creating a meaningful life and then demonstrating the life we're supposed to be demonstrating to live on purpose and with purpose and to have fun, actually, to show up in a way that we're meant to show up. So, okay, that was actually my introduction. I am gonna direct everybody to the school group again. And then we're gonna kind of do a little exercise together, right? So I posted the day 2 post here. And then because I want everybody to, oh, Tomo, of course you did, right? Um, Yesterday we started by sharing what you're grateful for. Yeah. One of the practices that we're doing, everybody, is to begin removing the idea of past, present, future. That is a rational mind thinking. That is a material way of living, that perception of time. When we understand that we're a spiritual being living in the physical body, uh, we move away from that way of thinking and it becomes about allowing the mind to access who we are and then begin feeling that in the instrument, the vehicle body, and to begin moving that into form in the physical form. Yeah. Now, what we want to do today is yesterday we did what you're grateful for, right? So we use the term gestation, right? So let's say, just for the sake of explanation, the vision that you have, right? What is the life of your desire that you are here to create? Yeah. We can temporarily bring our attention to the physical life that you're currently living. There's always going to be a lack because we always want more of. It's okay to want more of because wanting more is the path of fulfilling the desire, which is the path of unfoldment of the soul. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting more. Feeling called to create something very beautiful and exciting and joyful is what we want to actually uh, begin demonstrating. So, speaking of the fulfillment of the desire, something that's really important to you, something that's really meaningful for you. Yeah. take a moment to imagine that life, right? Where we're going a little simulation in your mind. When you are living that life fulfilled with the desire, you feel joyful, you feel expansive, right? Where is that? Where are you located? And what are you experiencing? And who are you with? What kind of conversation you're having? And what is the feeling? Jan is typing. I would love for everybody to share what you're grateful for in that imagination, right? In that imagination, right? The more we allow that imagination of the fulfillment of desire to drop into the feeling, now we're putting that formation of the desire into a gestation period, right? Because everything starts with a picture in the mind, the concept that you want to uh, formulate in the physical world. And the reason that I say gestation period is because whatever that you paint in your mind, picture, imagination is in your conscious mind. That is a male energy, masculine energy. And then when you begin moving that imagination into how you would feel when you're actually experiencing that, now you have this emotional body that you vibrate in a certain state based on the imagination. Now, the more you feel what you saw in your mind, now you are moving that thought and an imagery into the feeling body, which is the vibration in the body. The subconscious mind is the female factor, right? So when you imagine and impress upon in your subconscious, when the recognition in the mind moves and enter into the acceptance in the subconscious mind, you're moving from the male energy into a female energy, and now it's in the gestation period, so that that idea and the feeling is gonna be birthed into the physical form. That's what conscious manifestation is. That is what assumption does for us, right? So the practice that we are engaging here is to begin using our free will, which we can pick and choose any imagery or anything that we want without considering our past experience or considering the existing situation in the outside. None of those things matter because what is happening in the physical world is a historical document or our past internal energy. So one of the practices that we do, when we get to the phase 3 of the self-realization path is to begin looking at the physical world as your past. Because whatever that you're encountering now is a reflection of how you are engaging the energetic inside of you in the past, right? Then if there's something that we are not liking and enjoying or wants to change, we don't want to let that outside to cause us to think and feel again, reversing the cause and effect because we want the inside to be the cause of the outside effect. Then what we want to do is to practice a way to actually neutralize. Sometimes people say ignore, but to neutralize that external circumstance, contrast what we are not liking. That this is actually everybody one of the most important practice, I think, for spiritual realization. There are many people who believe in spirituality and have a spiritual practice, but they don't know how to relate to what appears to be negative, right? For instance, something happens in the relationship, something happens in the Department of Money, something happens in the Department of Health. The contrast in the perceived negativity triggers our biology. And because our biology wants to instinctually react to it, so we can stay safe, right? We allow that dynamic to take over. And because the rational mind wants to focus on the outside and wants to focus on the logic, the mind start going to this sort of trap of, okay, what do I need to do? Well, I don't like this, right? And then the entire energetics in the body move into a resistance mode, right? All those experience that many people have had probably multiple times, we want to become aware of that is what's happening and actually to be able to zoom back and to understand every perceived negative situation is a gateway for us to go deeper inside into that fulfillment of the desire because the outside is a reflection of the inside, not the other way around. It's easy for a lot of people who are practicing spirituality who have not yet acquired a awareness and a capacity to deal and relate with contrast, right? Because contrast start absorbing them and they get stuck in the circumstance. The only way that we get stuck in the circumstance is when we focus on the existing outside circumstance or when you start thinking thoughts about the outside based on the past data, memory that you have. Let me share this because this is important. The only two ways that people get stuck is when we are subconsciously trapped in this idea of paying attention to the external circumstance, right? Now, when you have a physical danger, for instance, somebody has a knife next to you, right? You want to pay attention to that physical contrast, right? But I'm talking about psychological stuff, right? What we often do, humans do, is that we see something, evidence of sight, lack of evidence of sight, seeing or not seeing what we want to see, and begin going to the thought trip of projecting something that doesn't exist. That's a psychological threat, right? So we want to notice where the mind goes when that happens because everything that happens in our life is just a feedback of our inside energetics. Or it's happening through us so we can dive deeper into nurture the cause and the seed, right? So to be able to begin creating the lifestyle like that is vital and essential to stay in the essence, right? Not stay in the essence, but also this is the essence view. Because when we begin looking at contrast from the essence view, you know that you are more powerful than the external circumstance. Nothing in the outside is more powerful than you because it is your experience, and what is yours is never bigger than yourself. But you can utilize your mind to let the outside more powerful than you when we disconnect from the essence. Yeah. So what we want to do is to begin cultivating an ability to relate with what appears to be negativity in the outside, cultivating the essence view, and also to notice that, oh, my mind is thinking this way, my mind is going this way because I'm thinking from the past memory. I'm automatically collecting data from my past and choosing to see this situation from that perspective. But here's the trick. The circumstance and consequence that we are surrounded by is a mirror and a reflection of our frequency, right? So if we want to create something different in the outside, we don't want to let the existing situation be the cause to step into any choice. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but that. Okay, thank you everybody, those for sharing, and we're going to come back to this a little bit. I want to anchor now everybody what awakened self is. That's the topic of today. And of course, this is what happens every time. Something came to me to share. The perfect thing came to me to share. Uh, Neil Donald Walsh was my first spiritual teacher, and this is his 5 ways to know if you are fully awake. I'm going to read this, everybody. You know you're fully awakened if you never entertain negative thoughts in your mind. That's what he said. That's interesting, right? And then if a negative thought does happen to slip in, you get it out of your mind immediately because that negative thought actually is not you. It comes from the story in your mind. I'm adding a little bit. This is not what he's saying. I'm adding. You think of something else deliberately because you have a free will. You simply change your mind about that. That's number one. Yeah. Number two, this is the number two ways to know if you are fully awake. You know you're fully awakened if you love yourself fully, just as you are, and you love everyone else fully, just as they are. Then you love life fully, just as it is, needing nothing to change and seeing everything as simply something you're moving through so that you can know about it and create a contextual feel, providing you with an opportunity to demonstrate who you are. Number three, you know you're fully awakened if you would forgive no one and nothing ever again. This is interesting, right? This might be contradictory to a lot of what a lot of people say. Neil has a certain perspective around the idea of forgiveness, which I agree with. And this forgiveness is different from how Neville talks about forgiveness. But let me explain a little bit more. So he said, you know, you are fully awakened if you would forgive no one and nothing ever again. Out of knowing that forgiveness is neither necessary nor natural for humans who are aware that they are awake. You clearly see that holding an idea that there is a need for forgiveness means holding an idea that an injury has occurred. I mean, if we speak of the soul purpose language, we're talking about if you're coming from or if you're living from the story of your wound, you might feel like you need to forgive somebody or forgive yourself. But there's no such a thing in the essence. Yeah. And as a human who is awake, you are aware that injury is not possible in the experience of divinity, which is who you are. You therefore replace forgiveness with understanding. In your interaction with others, which naturally leads to compassion for others, as you experience the full realization of the pain, anger, or sadness they must have felt at such a high level as to cause them to abandon their true nature and behave as they did. This is very good. Can I read this again? Number three. Yeah. You know you are fully awakened if you would forgive no one and nothing ever again. Out of knowing that forgiveness is neither necessary nor natural for humans who are aware that they are awake, you clearly see that holding an idea that there is a need for forgiveness means holding an idea that an injury has occurred. And as a human who is awake, you are aware that injury is not possible in the experience of divinity, which is who you are. You therefore replace forgiveness with understanding in your interactions with others, which naturally leads to compassion for others as you experience a full realization of the pain, anger, or sadness they must have felt at such a high level as to cause them to abandon their true nature and behave as they did. So if you're living or if somebody's living in and from the stories of the one, it means that in that moment, the mind is abandoning the essence and the true nature. Number 4, you know that you're fully awake when you know you are fully awakened. Sorry. If you do not mourn the death of another, not even for a moment. You might mourn your loss, but not their death. But in fact, celebrate both the moments of love and joy that they share with others and the fact that they continue to living free and wondrous expression of the evolutionary process. You likewise neither fear nor mourn your own death for precisely the same reason. Last one, number 5. You know you are fully awakened if you are aware, that everything is energy in vibration, everything, everything. And so you pay much more attention to the vibration of everything that you eat, of everything that you wear, of everything that you watch, read, or listen to, and most important, of everything that you think, say, and do, and you immediately adjust the vibration of your own energy and the life energy that you are creating around you if you find that it is not in resonance with the highest knowing you have about who you are and the experience of this knowing that you choose to demonstrate. These are good. I know somebody's going to tell me, where can I find information? I'll see if I can summarize and post somewhere in the group because this comes from a piece of information that I have with Neil, but this might actually be in Conversation with God number 4 because the theme of that book is Awakened Species. Okay, so I already talked a little bit about the law of polarity, but I also want to come back to this topic because it's vital in understanding the awakened self. And also, I want to talk about the universal law of relativity because these two laws are vital in begin absorbing and embodying in order for us to stay in the state of essence. So before I get in there though, we have this soul purpose group, right? School group. In the soul purpose group, the ultimate work that we're doing is the work of self-realization. And then we also have the work and the container of soulpreneur. Yeah. And I'm gonna share something, how I came to create this. So that stories you can reflect that to be able to actually tap into how you can bring your story to begin formulating the gift. Because I think I have gone through different paths, and what we're doing here is a collection of everything that I have done, and it became an expression of me based on the stories that I have lived. Yeah. So I mentioned a moment ago about my background in holistic health education. Yeah. And the idea that I had a resistance in school system because I met with somebody who had the same impression. I never felt that the school was something that was for me, right? I did enjoy like a philosophy classes or different psychology classes, but the whole system and the idea of memorizing and then answering, even right now, like I actually don't understand the purpose of multiple choices, right? The exams and all that. And the whole system was created based on the misunderstanding of who we are. So humans, we created school, which called education, misunderstanding that our cup is empty. So we need to feed information for the soul to learn, to be capable. Yeah. That's why there's a lot of information that we needed to memorize. Yeah. And I did memorize, and I don't think it served me in any area in my life to be effective or to create a meaningful life. And I always felt odd. And until I move along and started to understand that education really means to draw out from within. So what if the cup is full and whole already, and there are things, right, like things like AI or internet or different things, the knowledge that we can acquire to practice technique, but the fundamental capital K knowing is not something that we need to learn from the outside. And for instance, a lot of the things that I'm sharing here with everybody is not anything that you do not know inside of you. But offering this container and a space is enabling you to tap into what you already know, because for most of us, the mind has program to actually dim what we know. That's why we don't feel trusting in the process, right? Something that Sam yesterday shared about faith, right? There's nothing that we actually do not know in the future, right? That not having the trust, we also call it leap of faith, right? When we feel uncertain, when we feel like, I don't know if I can trust, that's because the mind and the logical mind is taking over, and the mind is trying to find evidence that makes sense for the mind to feel safe. The next thing that I'm going to share with everybody is one of my favorite things that I like to share with the world that I sort of cultivated in the last few years. If you look back your entire stories in your life, and when we look at every single encounter, including people who are here or how you got to be here, you would not be able to rationally and logically identify what exactly happened. Does that make sense? Nothing in our life happens logically, but everything happens in the pool of quantum probability. So it's the quantum entanglement, if you want to use that language, right? Based on our energetics. Every single happening in our life occurs based on the energetic resonance, which is not in the dimension of the rational mind. So it's highly irrational to try to think how things are going to happen next. Does that make sense? Nothing happens rationally. We didn't meet or encounter having a plan, right? We can create a map or the roadmap, but the how things happen is not our business. So what I often say is, for the free will, there are only two things that we want to focus on, right? What is it that we want? That exact life that we desire, and then who we are here to become. Because the who is the energetics that invite the what. And when that's going to happen or how those things going to manifest is not our business. But the rational mind wants to focus on when exactly and how things are going to unfold. Nothing has unfolded in our life, understanding how in detail from A to Z, because that's not how things happen, right? So the the practice that we want to cultivate is to balance that imagination and intuition, balance where when we use the free will, when we let God do the rest, and then begin being in that dance between individual and collective, personal and cosmic. Because the integration of all of that is how we're expressing here. So having that idea in mind, that the path that I have taken is a resistance to school, resistance to health, which for me took me to begin dive deeper into the field of holistic health education, which is uh, full of consciousness and spiritual studies. And what we do is actually a school. I had a resistance in school forever, and I created a school that demonstrate for me the real meaning of education. How can we draw your gift out from within? How can we help you let the soul shine to the surface of personality? How can we help you to integrate that essence and personality so you are whole inside and so joyfully excited sharing that to the world so you can begin creating a circulation, right? That is the path of self-realization that we have. And then the additional level path is that now school system, for me, in my interpretation, is designed to develop workers, right? That's why the whole process is do this and follow this process, and you're gonna memorize it, right? That's how workers' mentalities develop. But it doesn't conducive to the unfoldment of the soul, right? The creativity, the playfulness, and the infinite possibilities. I do not believe in the idea of somebody else setting the ceiling for your income, right? So then another layer of this path that I have taken that I resisted for a long time that manifested in what I'm doing is that we are also a group and a container to help build and develop soulpreneur. Those are soul-led entrepreneurs who are on the mission of awakening the world, but we help them to build their business of their calling so that they can begin creating a circulation of the money, whatever the amount that you desire, to set the ceiling for yourself so you can use that vehicle, that message that you're here to deliver to actually touch the world. Yeah. So that's how my story unfolded. And I created a container that actually represent my message based on what I have lived. So that's has been a evolutional process that I didn't came up with that or aligning with that right away, right? Things evolve along the way and the group expanded. And we are at the point where the expansion is going to be accelerate and we are catching up with putting systems together because I'm in the assumption of where we are going and what we are manifesting, and it needs a physical system and process to be able to sustain that volume and a capacity. Yeah, that's how I think, right? I don't take action to get anywhere. I'm there already energetically, and I take action so I can be open to receive, right? If I don't have the system already now, but I wait for things to come in order to create the system, I'm not telling the universe that I'm ready, right? That's the action piece, right? The energetics, the gestation period is already there, right? I'm already there. And then I'm moving the energy in a different way to begin letting the universe know that I'm receiving. Yeah. So in that process, for most people, what get in the way is this idea of getting stuck with the lack in the outside. And also, when I speak of the law of relativity, the law of relativity, everybody, has a lot to do with our belief, right? So whatever that you believe becomes true in your life. So if you believe that you are an effective and efficient person, it becomes true in your life, right? If you believe that you're a calm person, your life becomes very peaceful. If you believe that health is the life that I am living, you will manifest that. But if you believe that there's always a challenge physically, if you believe that there's always something that happens in the department of the relationship or in the mind, it becomes so because that is the underlying assumption that we are moving from. So what we want to do is to begin noticing any thoughts that we're thinking and in any action that we're taking, what is the assumption that we're moving from? And we all have some sort of limitation because we're living in the dimension of the mind. The mind is finite, and the work is to move the finite mind to meet the infinite soul. Yeah. So, but then the mind, you can recognize the limitation of the mind based on how you're thinking, what you're doing, not doing, and then begin shifting to expand. So anything that you believe natural for you, you will attract. Then it's just a matter of exercising the mind and energetics to make it natural for you, including the amount of income that you can flow to you. If $5,000 is a lot of money, you're resisting away from it. If $10,000 is a lot of money, you're resisting against for it, right? A little trick that I learned how to use, I don't think I ever been taught by anybody. I just came up with it. I practice myself removing 2 zeros for everything. So $1,000 feels $10 for me. $10,000 feels $100 for me. I remove 2 zeros, right? So $100 is a lot of money for 10 years old, but not, especially if you're living in San Francisco or Japan, right? Depending on where you live, right? It changes. It's all relative, right? And what we want to understand is the manifestation in the outside or how we create an environment is an extension of the consciousness, right? So when somebody, let's say if Elon Musk, $10,000 is very little money, even $100,000 probably is a little money. And we tend to think that, oh, those people think that those are a little money because they have it, right? It's the other way around. They end up having it because they exercise those to be small. It's that simple, everybody. The flow of wellness, the flow of energetics of the money, the flow of meaningful relationship comes to us when it becomes natural. So financial wealth is an extension of the feeling about money. Meaningful relationship is an extension of feeling about the relationship. The strength in the body and the absence of any limitation is around the feeling that you have about the physical body and the health. And awakening that unlimited, as much as possible, unlimited version of the abundance into the way that we think, the way that we perceive, the way that we act is the work of the awakened self. And because we're living in this, contextual field and we build the sense of self through personality, through the empathic nature that we have, we want to notice that, but then also we can choose to stay as a cause to create the things in the outside instead of absorbing what's out there to be created by the outside. I don't think I said this time around. I have said this on different calls. I like when Myron Golden says that God created three things: creators and creatures and creation, right? Creations are the things like, did I say this yesterday? I don't think I said this. Suns, oceans, skies, earth, those are creation, right? Creatures are dogs, insects, birds, yeah? Humans are creators. We have the creatureness in our biological sense, but God created us as a creator because we can think thoughts and imagine thoughts disconnecting from our environment, right? Humans are the only creatures and creators who can worry about the future. Dogs are not worried about the future. Puppies are not, definitely not. Trees are never worried about the rain. Does that make sense? So we have this free will to disassociate our internal image and a feeling away from nature. That's why many people started to identify nature outside of them, universe outside of them, God outside of them, because that's how much we can create something whatever we want to, right? That's how we lost contact with the whole, because in our mind, we can create whatever we want to. So we created an illusion that we are separate from the whole. That's how suffering happens. But the good news is that now that we become aware of and have the roadmap, we can actually recreate ourselves as part of the whole. We can begin practicing using the essence view to see ourselves part of nature. We can see ourselves and feel ourselves that in every single cell inside of the body, universe lives. We can use our essence view, the shifting perspective, to understand and embody that if Spirit, God is ever present, all knowing, it must be within us. It must be at all time. There's nowhere that the Spirit God is not. Right now, in this moment, everywhere, it exists inside of our molecules. And then begin producing thoughts and taking action from that perspective is what we are able to create because we are the creator, right? So then it's just a matter of understanding the habit of the mind that tends to forget, understanding the habit of the mind that tends to lean into the rational mind, understanding the habit of the mind that tends to focus on the sight, and collecting data from the past to feel safe. And then be able to step back and even observe that and continue to create what energizes us to be able to see ourselves as no separate from the creator because we are one. Today, we're going to have Sam share her journey. That wasn't a surprise, right? I think I told you. I'm going to ping her. And I'm going to ping, hello. I'm going to ping myself. Okay. So
I wasn't surprised. I thought you said we were going to do some kind of interview, so I was like, I'll just sit here and answer some questions.
yes, you can answer my question. Yes. And then you're going to go with
Okay,
the flow. So
okay,
Sam came to me. I exactly remember because the day that I did a presentation in that group, and I think I remember you asked a few questions, and it was Tuesday. It was maybe around November, or
yeah.
maybe the last week of October, I think.
I think I came into your group literally at the tail end of October
Until most of exactly.
2024.
Right,
Yeah,
right. And the presentation that I did was about the mind. And I think it spoke to Sam because I sort of share something that came from Bob Proctor, which uh, who I study with, who Sam also studied with. And then in my perception, Sam, is that something spoke to you, something drew you to be curious about learning more what it is. And you went through the phase one of self-realization right away, and then you jump on to phase two, and you're part of the soulpreneur. But what I love about where you're at right now is that you're taking your time. You're taking
Right.
your time because through the Enneagram work, this is my interpretation, so you can kind of
Yeah.
explain differently based on how you experience. You probably had a little bit of moment of like identity crisis, which is a good sign, right? And then you are wanting to build your business, shifting away from your existing in-person business to online stuff. That's what we talked about. But you want to
Right.
make sure that what you're going to create is something that you're actually meant to do. And you didn't want to get into that logistic of how to express until you're clear with who you are and then who you're here to express. Yeah. So maybe you can share a
Right.
little bit about the journey that you had last 6 months and
Mm.
what did you experience in that? What was that identity crisis for you? Because for me, I know it's not pleasant and it's kind of painful. I get very happy when people go through that. I have gone through it. It's a good thing. It's a
Yeah.
dip before the leap, right? And
Right.
if you go through that right now, it means that you're solidifying and anchoring for the entire rest of your life. Because if you don't go through that, you will either, if somebody doesn't go through that, the way that I see is at some point, people will realize or go all the way until the end, not actually taking care of it. So,
Mm. Well, I guess the where I'm at right now is all of the things that you say that has been, and Jan will tell you, like, it has been such an emotionally excruciating, confusing, crying a lot, almost, I think I said on a call last week, like I really feel like this sense of mourning myself through going through this process of uh, investigating who am I, and actually pulling on the thread of something's missing. I don't know what it is. And I'm just taking the next right step without putting too much logical thinking into anything. And so when we met, um, I was in Doug's group just about to go head first into creating a business that now I know is not fully aligned to what my purpose is. And I kind of, it's interesting because it's like the logical thinking is like, I want to earn money, I need to have a business, and this is, once I have this, is going to make me happy. Like I want to be successful, and then I kind of got to a place of going through your I'm getting confused, self-realization work and the belief accelerator, just very slowly, not even a whole layer of the onion, but like splitting the layers of the onion in less than half, like these tiny little layers coming apart, starting to realize that, ah, I I this isn't what I want to do. What I've originally thought is what I want. And so this whole period of trying to build a business, because a couple of years ago, I paid someone 12 grand to teach me how to launch an online health and fitness business. And I tell you, it was the most stressful time of my life. I hated every moment of it. But this big goal of mine was to have all of this success and loads of money. And ultimately, now I realized it was such a good learning experience of the failing of that, because I have this really beautiful perspective now, kind of reflecting back, of this massive misalignment of this marauding and striving for something that's just not in me. And so I pushed and tried and threw money at it and just relentless pushing. And eventually, I mean, I wouldn't say I had a full-on breakdown, but I got to a point where I was physiologically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, financially exhausted. Um, I just felt so bankrupt in so many different areas of myself. And then kind of doing the Enneagram work and going through the program, those layers that have been revealing to me things that I have a sense that I've always known, but I'm only just now recognizing them cognitively. Like I have this feeling of like sometimes when I'll have a moment of something clicks, or I feel like, I know this, I recognize this. How do I know that? So it's been a very interesting kind of like, this information is me, the essence of who I am, and it's just now connecting the logical understanding, the brain and the mind, and the essence of like everything's starting to come together. And so yeah, so I'm just kind of, I was saying to Jan this morning that I'm kind of coming to the, so I just dropped everything. Like um I I I I need to, and it feels the right thing for me to just sit in silence, do nothing, buy nothing, watch nothing, stop trying to achieve, stop chasing, stop trying to get attention, stop stressing, stop worrying about just stop. And it's been so like the duality of experience, this excruciating uncomfortability with just doing nothing, because my personality doesn't resonate or recognize like this voice that's screaming at me going, what are you doing with your life? You're supposed to be doing something, get up. And then this other part of my being that's like, it's okay, it will stop. That voice will just stop. Almost like a, just leave it and the baby will stop crying kind of thing. And so I've been practicing doing nothing. And the sensation of the uncomfortability is very beautifully fading. And so this morning, Jan and I had such a beautiful conversation about kind of what I want, what am I here to do, what lights me up. And so it's been a really nice process, kind of just being very natural with what comes out rather than this previous. What I've always tried to do is like, this is going to make me money. I'm doing that. And then just being relentless and ultimately burnout, unfulfillment, confusion. And so right now I'm kind of experiencing naturalness around what like things that I'm saying. I'm like, oh, this it feels so great. Um, and so I'm in a period of kind of just allowing without shoulding myself, like you should be doing this and you should be earning this money. You should have already done that. Like you're 42 and like what a loser because you haven't, achieved, so it's such a I feel in a place of kind of relief and contentment in the allowing of this naturalness to just come forward and guide me rather than me like grabbing uh, it has to be my way and it has to be done now, yesterday, like just so impatient to achieve. And now I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm really leaning into just allowing this process to unfold without me changing anything. And so that's kind of where I am. Um, yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your
yeah,
thanks for everyone, like the power of community and yeah.
let it be is the practice that you're doing. And also, something that I want to emphasize to all of us is the space and the community that people that we are surrounded by is really important because the practice that we're doing is a different kind of lifestyle and the way of being. And often it's not being encouraged by the mainstream and the public. So how can we be and move from that place, from the knowing, and to actually trust that process because that's the real power that we have inside of us. And I feel like, the any group that we have inside the self-realization, the belief accelerator, even the soulpreneur, for me, what we're doing is actually building a group and the collective energetics so we can stay in this path and energy because it's a natural thing for people to kind of fall off and back on. We're welcome to go deep inside to take our time to process all that, right? But then I think the tendency of our self, the tendency of self is that it tends to fall into that familiarity of it, right? So my intention of forming this group and going dive deep into the path of self-realization and even the building the business is no different from my goal. Like for instance, the business that I'm building here is an extension of my spiritual practice. It's no different from it, right? I'm not working on myself or going up to the mountain to meditate and then come back and do the business. That's why I don't really take any vacation because the business is my vacation, right? There's no different from it, right? So that's the journey of the integration. And I think you mentioned some around sort of, feeling inside and there's a part of you that is looking for the verbiage and then, you're in the process of integration. And I really feel that the spiritual realization and the self-realization is a path of integration. The integrating the essence and the self, integrating what we true to be true inside and how we show up in the outside, integrating our inner journey into an outer expression. So the idea of business or the idea of engaging in the world, every step of the way becomes a part of the way of being, and you just enjoy your experience and express it. And to make everything natural, because it is at the essential level. Anything that we feel resistance or limitation is the product of the mind. So begin recognizing that, working on that, and then bridging the gap is what we're doing. And then, you know, just like the present moment is not a dot or the one tick of the clock, but there's an infinite depth to it. This journey of integration I found has an infinite depth to it. And once you, because I feel like you are coming out of the other side almost, and then, you have things planned the next few months, and then I think you're in the perfect place to begin creating something that you want to touch others. And then I think once you start creating, because the creation of your business is an extension of your arts and expression, now you can go deeper into the integration to know who you are here to express at the deeper level. And then there's no end to it. Like, alignment is not two things aligning. Alignment has a depth to it, right? And then there's an infinite depth to it because soul is infinite, right? So then the journey of building the business becomes the journey of integration of the self personality into the essence, and you will start discovering different flavors, different way of expressing it, and it just becomes richer and richer and richer, and that's very enjoyable. So thank you for your commitment, and you have a great accountability partner. And I love seeing people from different countries around the world connecting. And it's interesting though, because this wasn't my intention, but this group, has evolved into people connecting each other without me, which is a good sign. And then you guys are building community on its own, and then that's what it's all about. So uh thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it speaks to a lot of people. So thank you. How do I remove pin? Right there. Everybody, I'm going over a little bit, but and then feel free to, if you need to leave, feel free to take off. I am actually gonna share again one last time the school group just to kind of share how we want to close. And I actually want to open up to the room if you have any questions, right? So here, there are people who are joining live. There are people who are watching replay. This replay will be available under the classroom here until the end of the month. I'm not leaving forever. And here, I'm asking important question. What is an awakened life for you, right? Uh, Other than any of the things that Neil said resonate with you, you can add that. But what is that? Like when you're awakened, what would you be experiencing? What would be different? To give you a structure to answer, please share three things you would absolutely be experiencing that represent your awakened life, who you're becoming, what would be different. Yeah. We're doing these events monthly to share what we are doing and to re-energize all of us. If anybody wants to stay in the energy, and if anybody who is new, who is not in the self-realization of soulpreneur, these are the next steps. So if you can take a look at it. If you are a soul-led entrepreneur who wants to integrate your spiritual aspect into the growth of the business, I do open house to share everything about the soulpreneur identity. I'm going to have the next one next Tuesday, July 29th. You click this, you can register. It's a free event that I share. So this is your next step. If you are not really having any business, but you are intrigued with this integration of the self and the soul, you can message me self-realization here. If you click that, it goes to my DM, and then we can continue the conversation. We also have something called essence frequency, where Jan and Shannon and Amber facilitate different groups to my intention of all those calls. Jan does the Enya Club, and Amber does a study group with the book, but really studying yourself. And then Shannon does a vibrational ritual using the voice, is to help all of us stepping into that essence frequency. That's why I call it essence frequency. But if you're interested in that, you can check this out. So we have different options to stay involved. If the conversation that I share with you resonate with you, I would love for you to do something, right? Instead of leaving this energy elsewhere and then going back to your existing life, because change and transformation requires a certain period of time to stay in that energy. And as I said, there's going to be a deeper realization as we move along together. And when you step into this, one recommendation that I have is that the only reason that you can lean into and dive into is whether this is resonating with you. If it's not resonating with you, I don't want you to move forward because it's not going to work for you. But if it's resonating with you, no matter what the existing situation is, in terms of the busyness, yeah, I'm too busy is never the reason because the busyness is being created by your frequency. So many people who are busy who step into this feels less busy with the same schedule because it's all about perception and priority. And the financial aspect also, I don't want anybody to may be that the reason to not to move forward. We have different options, right? And we have different things that we discuss because the life that you're currently living, surrounding, is a effect of the inside consciousness. Everything will change once you step into a new frequency. So that's my 2 cents. So you can take a look at this and decide which one you would like to go for. It. Okay.